This respect hits you right at the center. It's something everyone faces. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic, knew this. He said we're not upset by what happens, but by our judgment of it. That idea changes everything about how you can respond. I want to go through 15 practical approaches, all from Stoic thinking, that help guard your calm and show real dignity. The goal is to turn these situations around, from feeling attacked to building a deeper strength. We'll look at old principles, like focusing only on what you control and working on your immediate impulses. That builds a kind of quiet fortress. Winning an argument without speaking, what does that actually look like? Or feeling compassion for the person insulting you. By the finish, you'll have a set of tools, things you can actually do, to move with a kind of grace, with a kind of authority. What's that one insult you wish you'd met with more composure? The first tool is really an inaction. It's a space you create. Something happens, a look, a word, and there's a gap, a tiny moment between what happens and what you do. Stoicism says all our power is in that gap. The event itself, what someone says, that's external. That's not up to us. What is up to us is our opinion. Our impulse. Epictetus said we're disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. So the first response isn't a response. It's claiming that space. Widening it, you get a dismissive message, your face flushes, you want to fire back. That's the automatic script. The Stoic move is to interrupt it. In that pause, you ask, what part of this can I actually control? You can't control their intention, their mood. You can control your judgment of it and your choice. That pause is where dignity starts. It's refusing to be a puppet. When you insert that moment of awareness, you step out of the reaction. You step into a position of command. It turns a potential conflict into a private exercise. Think of a recent slight, something minor that bothered you. Replay it, but this time put a deliberate breath between the event and your reaction. That breath is your fortress. It's how you start mastering not the world, but yourself. We compound our own pain by assuming we know why someone acted the way they did. That's the second tool. It comes directly from that pause. In that moment of stillness, you have a choice. You can attach a story to the act immediately, or you can separate the two. The act itself is just a fact. Your colleague cut you off. Someone ignored your greeting. A friend was late. Those are observable events. The story is everything you layer on top. He's trying to undermine me. She doesn't respect me. They don't value my time. That story, that assumed intent, is where almost all the sting comes from. Stoicism asks us to challenge that habit. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in his private writings not to be upset by people behaving as people do. He wrote about considering that the person who wrongs you does so out of ignorance, that they cannot see what is truly good. He even suggested that perhaps they acted with good intention from their own flawed perspective. This isn't about making excuses for poor behavior. It's about protecting your own peace from a narrative you cannot possibly verify. He noted it is a profound folly to be surprised that a fig tree produces figs. Is it any greater a surprise that a flawed human produces flawed actions? Take a concrete example. You're presenting an idea in a meeting, and a colleague interrupts you sharply, dismissing your point. The observable act is the interruption. The immediate, painful story might be, he's sabotaging me. He wants to make me look bad. Now, in that pause, practice differentiation. What are other interpretations more charitable, or at least more neutral? Perhaps he's under immense pressure from his own manager and is distracted by anxiety. Maybe he misunderstood your point and thinks he's correcting a factual error for the team's benefit. It could be he has a personal habit of poor conversational timing and does this to everyone, completely unaware of its impact. None of these stories may be true, but the crucial point is your first hostile story likely isn't true either. By entertaining multiple possibilities, you drain the event of its personal venom. You see the act as a symptom of something in their world, not a targeted missile aimed at yours. This practice builds emotional resilience, so here is a challenge. For just one day, make it a conscious exercise. Anytime you feel a flash of disrespect before you react, offer one charitable interpretation. The driver who cut you off might be rushing to a family emergency. The curt cashier might be in physical pain. This isn't naive. It's a strategic recalibration of your own mind. You are training yourself to respond to the world as it is, not to the frightening story you tell yourself about it. And in doing so, you reclaim a quiet authority because your peace is no longer held hostage by your assumptions. The Stoics talked about an inner citadel. A fortress in the mind. It's not about hiding. It's about building a foundation so solid that outside storms can't shake your core. That's the third way to handle disrespect. You fortify your dignity from within. If your self-worth is tied to external things, your job title, social media likes, praise from others, you hand over the keys to your peace. Anyone who withholds that validation or attacks it can make you feel worthless. But if your worth is defined by your own character, by virtues you cultivate daily, it becomes unassailable. The Stoics called virtue the only true good. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. These are qualities no one can give you and no one can take away. They exist entirely within your control. A disrespectful comment can't make you less courageous. A dismissive gesture can't reduce your capacity for justice. That shifts the whole battlefield. The insult isn't an attack on you anymore. It's just a test of your commitment to these principles. Will you respond with the wisdom to see the bigger picture? With a temperance to control your anger, with the justice to not return harm for harm. Your dignity is measured by your own virtuous action then, not by the misbehavior of another. Seneca wrote about this. He talked about the foolishness of seeking approval from people we ourselves don't admire. Why would you let the opinion of someone whose character you question determine how you feel about yourself? It's like taking fashion advice from someone dressed in rags. When you know your own worth based on your own standards of good character, the chatter of others loses its power to define you. Picture two people hearing the same piece of gossip about them. The first person's entire week is ruined. They obsess over who said it, why they said it, what everyone now thinks. Their mood, their self-esteem is held hostage by an external story. The second person hears the gossip, acknowledges it's unfortunate, but feels no deep wound. Why? Because their self-assessment is secure. They know their own actions, their own intentions. They have a private ledger of their character that no rumor can rewrite. The gossip is just noise in the wind. It can't touch the truth they hold about themselves. The difference isn't indifference, it's independence. There's a practical exercise to start strengthening those inner walls. Take a moment, write down 3 qualities you value in yourself that no one else can take away. Maybe it's your perseverance through difficulty, your honesty in small matters, your compassion for animals, your dedication to learning. These are your virtues, your inner currency. When you feel the sting of disrespect, return to this list. Remind yourself that the slight did not and cannot diminish any of these. Your dignity was never out there to be taken. It was always in here being built. Choice by choice, that inner citadel is where you find the calm to respond, not from a place of wounded pride, from a place of unshakable self-possession. The most eloquent reply can be a calm silence. It's not a retreat, it's a choice, a deliberate one. When you face disrespect, the immediate urge is to answer it. To match the heat, to defend yourself with words, but silence when you choose it is a declaration. It denies the provocation what it wants, your reaction. It signals their words don't have the power to command you. In Stoic thought, this is temperance, mastery over impulse, control of the tongue, which is often the first thing to betray our calm. Seneca wrote on anger, called it a temporary madness. He said nothing is more ruinous than hasty speech spoken in passion. The best cure for anger is delay. A pause before speaking. In that pause, silence is your fortress. He said we should listen much and speak little. In listening we learn. In measured silence we keep our command. This isn't about suppressing feeling. It's choosing a more powerful expression. Your quiet speaks about your self-possession. A heated retort often just reveals a loss of control. Take a practical scene. You're in a team meeting. A colleague makes a pointed, sarcastic remark aimed at you. The room tenses, eyes flick to you, waiting. The automatic script wants a comeback, a defense, a counterattack, but you take the stoic pause, a slow breath. You meet their gaze, not with anger, but a steady acknowledgement. Maybe a slight, unreadable nod. Then you turn your attention back to the speaker or your notes. You've said nothing, but you've communicated. You've shown their attempt to provoke has failed. The tension dissipates, not because you won an argument, but because you refused to have one. Your dignity stays intact, maybe even elevated. Their disrespect hangs there unanswered. Powerless, that silence is an active force. It creates space for reason to return. It often leaves the other person disoriented. Their expected script is torn up. They prepared for a fight, and you gave them peace. That can be more unnerving than any shout. The challenge is to practice it. Think of one recurring situation in your life. A family member with belittling comments, a neighbor with rude complaints. Resolve that next time. Your first response will be a purposeful, comfortable silence. Don't glare, don't sigh, just be still. Listen if you must, but don't engage on their terms. Observe what happens inside you. The urge to speak will rise like a wave and then fall away. And watch what happens around you. Often, the silence itself becomes the moderator. By withholding your words, you preserve your energy, your dignity. For what truly matters, and that makes your eventual actions when you do choose to speak far more considered, more potent. When you're not sure what to do, ask a question. It changes things. It moves you from defending yourself to trying to understand. That's the fifth response to disrespect. It's a powerful tool. You've taken that pause. You've separated the act from the story you tell about it. Now you have to choose what to do. A calm question, one that seeks clarity, is often the most stoic action. It turns a possible fight into a search for what's true. The point isn't to score a point, it's to see the situation clearly. A question like, "Can you help me understand what you mean by that?" That question does a few things. It makes the other person explain their position. Often, that exposes the unreasonableness of it without you having to say a thing. It keeps you in a place of inquiry, not emotion, and it can disarm aggression completely, because aggression expects a fight. It doesn't expect a conversation. This connects to the Socratic method, which the Stoics admired. Socrates didn't lecture, he asked questions. He believed that through questioning, people could find their own contradictions and reach the truth. In a tense moment, your question becomes a mirror. It reflects the disrespect back, not with anger, but with a simple request for clarity. Epictetus reminded his students we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. A clarifying question honors that. It prioritizes listening and understanding over reacting and accusing. It's a practical use of the Stoic pursuit of wisdom. You're seeking the truth of the situation, not just defending your pride. Imagine a family dinner. An older relative dismisses your career choice. They wave a hand and say, "That's not a real job for a serious person." The sting is immediate. The automatic script wants to argue, to list your accomplishments, to defend your worth, but you take that breath. You remember your inner citadel. Your worth isn't up for debate. Then you use the question. You look at them with genuine, neutral curiosity and you say, "I want to understand your perspective better. What specifically led you to that view about my work?" And you watch what happens. The emotional charge often drains away. They might stammer. they might realize they have no specific reason, just a vague prejudice. They might explain a concern rooted in a different era's values, which opens a real dialogue. Or they might double down on the disrespect, making their own position look more and more unreasonable to everyone at the table. In every case, you keep the high ground. You haven't been rude, you've been thoughtful. You've shown a commitment to understanding over winning. Your dignity is preserved because you acted from principle, not from a wounded ego. The tone is key. The question has to be free of sarcasm, free of any hidden accusation. It has to be a genuine attempt, however difficult, to see their side. This isn't about tricking them. It's about giving your own mind a constructive task, the task of gathering information instead of the destructive task of rehearsing grievances. So here's a prompt. Before the next difficult interaction, craft and mentally rehearse 1 or 2 neutral clarification questions. Keep them simple, keep them open-ended. What would you need to see to feel differently about this? Help me understand the concern behind that comment. What part of my approach is causing the issue? By having these phrases ready, you give your future self a path of grace under pressure. You turn a moment of potential conflict into an opportunity. An opportunity for calm, clear communication, and in doing that, you demonstrate something. You show that your peace isn't so fragile that a harsh word can shatter it. It's resilient enough to seek understanding, even when understanding seems furthest away. Every act of disrespect, it might not be an attack, it could be an invitation. An invitation to practice what you believe. That's the 6th way to respond. You reframe the event itself. The Stoics had a concept, amor fati, a love of fate. It means embracing what happens, not just enduring it, welcoming it, seeing it as necessary for your growth. An obstacle becomes the way, so a rude comment. It's not a disruption to your peace, it's the material your peace is built with. It's a test, deliberately placed in your path, to see if your principles are theory or lived reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his private journal. He said the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He saw irritating people as his training partners. He would remind himself in the morning. Today, he would meet meddling people, ungrateful people, arrogant, deceitful people. But he didn't see them as enemies. They were teachers sent to drill him in patience, in tolerance, in justice. Their behavior was the heavy weight. The weight he needed to strengthen his character. When you adopt that view, the whole dynamic shifts. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this preparing me for? The disrespectful person is no longer your opponent. They're your sparring partner, and you should be grateful for a good sparring partner. They show you where your defenses are weak. Think of a historical figure, Nelson Mandela. His decades of hardship, he didn't just endure them, he later spoke of them as necessary training, a period where patience was forged. Resilience, a focus on inner freedom, forged in the most extreme conditions. He reframed a monumental injustice into a preparation for leadership. Our daily slights are far smaller. But the principle is identical. The co-worker who takes credit for your idea, they're testing your commitment to justice without malice. The relative who belittles your choices, they're testing your courage to hold your course. The stranger's road rage, it's testing your temperance, your ability to let a storm pass without joining it. Each one is a pop quiz in virtue, and you get to choose your grade. So here's an exercise. Think back to a recent event where you felt disrespected. Maybe just this week. Now, instead of replaying the hurt, reframe it as a test. What specific virtue was it an opportunity to practice? Was it patience? To listen without interrupting? Was it courage to speak your truth calmly? Was it justice to respond fairly despite being treated unfairly? By naming the virtue, you transform the memory. From a wound into a lesson, you reclaim the narrative. You see that the event didn't happen to you. It happened for you, for your training. This mindset doesn't make disrespect pleasant, But it makes it purposeful. It gives you a reason to engage with grace because you're no longer just dealing with a person. You're answering a call to become stronger, and that shift from victim to student, that's where unshakable dignity takes root. Stoicism shows up in the body, how you stand, how you hold yourself. Your posture, your face, your tone, they all speak first, and they can actually change your state. There's a loop between the physical and the mental. When you feel attacked, your instinct is to contract, to hunch, to clench your jaw, to raise your voice. But the Stoic chooses a different signal. By consciously taking the posture of calm, you can start to summon the feeling of calm. That's the seventh response. You keep your poise, not as a mask, but as a tool for command. Musonius Rufus taught about bearing. He said a good actor wears a mask that fits the role, and a good person bears themselves in a manner fitting for a rational being. Enduring hardship without looking burdened, facing difficulty with a face that shows an undisturbed mind, that outward grace isn't for show, it's a discipline. A practice of aligning the outside with your inner principle. Think of the loop in action. You get a harsh email. Your first reaction is to slump forward, your brow furrows, your breath gets shallow. That physical state feeds the mental one. It reinforces the threat. Now reverse it. You read the same email, you feel the tension, but before it takes hold, you intervene physically. You sit back, you lower your shoulders away from your ears, you take one full, deep breath into your diaphragm, you soften the muscles around your eyes. That physical reset sends a new message. It signals safety, it signals control. From that anchored place, you can choose your response with more clarity. Picture two people getting the same public criticism. The first person's body betrays them. Arms crossed, shifting weight, voice climbing in pitch and speed. Even if the words are logical, the presentation screams instability. The second person, practicing this poise, plants their feet evenly, hands relaxed at their sides. A steady, gentle gaze. When they speak, the voice is measured, coming from grounded breath. They say less, but every word carries more weight. Their dignity is visible. The criticism didn't vanish, but their presentation transformed the atmosphere of the exchange. So the prompt is this. Next time you feel that hot flash of provocation, before you say a word, do a poise reset. It takes 3 seconds. First, stand or sit tall, like a string is lifting the crown of your head. Second, take one slow, silent breath in through your nose and release it fully through your mouth. Third, consciously relax your facial muscles, your jaw, your forehead. This isn't pretending you don't feel something. It's preventing the feeling from hijacking your form. You're creating a container of calm for your reaction to inhabit. You are embodying the philosophy. Your body becomes the first statement of your dignity. A statement that needs no translation. A common idea about Stoicism is that it means accepting everything passively. That's not true. Stoic dignity isn't about being a doormat. It's about knowing with real clarity what you will accept and what you won't. Your peace doesn't come from enduring everything. It comes from choosing wisely where you put your energy. This is the 8th response, setting boundaries but with a kind of assertive grace. The Stoics saw this as an act of justice. Justice is a core virtue for them. And justice isn't just how you treat other people. It's also how you let yourself be treated. To allow consistent disrespect is an injustice to your own character. It's failing to honor your own worth. Epictetus drew a powerful line. He said, "Remember that what's insulting isn't the person who abuses you or hits you. It's your own judgment that they are insulting. So don't be disturbed by that first feeling of offense." But then he also said, if someone does succeed in provoking you, realize your mind is complicit in that provocation. That's the nuanced heart of it. You can't control their behavior. That's external. It's not up to you. But you can absolutely control your own participation in the dynamic. That is entirely up to you. Your boundary is the point where you exercise that control. It's the line you draw around your own peace, not to punish them, but to protect your own ability to act with virtue. Think of it this way: you're the guardian of a temple, which is your mind. Someone comes to the gates and starts throwing mud. Stoic acceptance doesn't mean you open the gates wider and say, "Throw more, it's fine." It means you recognize you can't stop their desire to throw mud. That's their business. Your business is to keep the temple clean, so you calmly, firmly close the gate. You don't engage with the mud, you just remove its target. That act of closing the gate is your boundary. It's not angry, it's not emotional, it's a practical, just decision. So how does this sound in practice? The language is key. It has to be clear, concise, without emotional charge. It states a fact about your own actions, not a demand of theirs. Here's a kind of template. I'm happy to discuss this, but I won't continue the conversation if it includes personal insults. Or, I value our working relationship, so I need our feedback to be about the project, not about each other. Or simply, I don't speak to people who are yelling. I'll be in the next room when you're ready to talk calmly. Notice the structure. It often starts with a positive or neutral intent. Then it states a clear, observable condition. Finally, it outlines the action you will take if that condition isn't met. The power is in the follow-through. You have to be prepared to calmly enact the consequence, to leave the room, to end the call, to disengage. This isn't an ultimatum given in anger. It's a principle communicated in advance that you live by. Consider a recurring scenario. A family member always makes belittling comments about your life choices at gatherings. The old pattern is to seethe silently or get into a heated argument. The new Stoic boundary might sound like this. At a calm moment before the next event, you could say, "I enjoy seeing everyone at these dinners. For us to have a good time, I need our conversations to be respectful. If comments about my career or personal life come up, I will simply change the subject or excuse myself from the table. Then, at the dinner, if the comment comes, you don't argue. You don't explain, you calmly say, "I'm going to go help in the kitchen for a bit," and you get up. You've controlled what you can, your participation. You've protected your peace, and you've done it with a grace that leaves no room for them to paint you as the difficult one. Your reflective prompt is this. Identify one relationship or one context in your life right now, where a simple, clear boundary needs to be stated and practiced. It doesn't have to be a grand confrontation. It could be with a coworker who constantly dumps last-minute work on you, or a friend who is chronically late. What is the clear, observable condition? And what is the calm, consistent action you will take to honor your own peace? Write down the sentence you will use, practice it. This isn't about changing them. It's about changing your own response, from passive endurance to principled action. That's where dignity finds its voice, and its quiet, unyielding strength. The real victory isn't having the last word, it's keeping your peace. That's the ninth response. It takes a particular strength, one that looks like surrender, but it's actually a kind of command. The urge to fire back, to land that final clever point, that's almost never about virtue. It's about ego. It's that small, wounded part that needs to feel validated. Needs to feel superior, needs to prove something. Stoicism asks us to look at that urge. The goal for a Stoic is tranquility, a state of undisturbed peace, ataraxia. And that peace shatters the moment you trade one more barb just to feel right. You might win the point, but you lose your calm, and which one is more valuable? Seneca wrote about this emptiness. He said it's better to heal than to avenge an injury. The person who did the wrong has already damaged themselves by their own action. Your vengeance is just another wrong. He observed that petty victories are hollow. They leave you agitated, not satisfied. A quiet mind, on the other hand, is a full possession. When you let go of the need for the last word, you aren't conceding. You're claiming a much greater prize, your own serenity. Picture a typical argument. It escalates, starts with a minor fact, then it becomes about tone, then about past grievances. The volume rises. Each person is waiting not to listen, but to pounce with their next retort. The goal isn't understanding anymore, it's conquest. Now see the alternative. The same disagreement starts. You state your perspective clearly once. The other person counters with a dismissive jab. That's the critical point. The old script demands a counter jab. The Stoic script offers a different exit. You can make one final factual point, or you can simply say, "I see we disagree on this." And then you stop. You let the silence hang. You don't fill it. You might offer a small, closed-lipped nod, and then you disengage physically or mentally. You turn your attention elsewhere. The argument for you is over. It ends not with drama, but with the quiet click of a door closing in your mind. This is powerful in practice. In a text argument, it's the strength to not send that final, cutting message, to leave the last message, even an unreasonable one, sitting there unanswered. In a family debate, it's the ability to say, "You may be right," and then change the subject without sarcasm. You aren't agreeing, you're just ending the combat. The other person might sputter, they might try to re-engage, but you've removed the fuel. Without your participation, the fire goes out. So here's a prompt. Next time you feel that hot urge to have the definitive last word, pause. In that moment, ask yourself, what am I truly trying to protect or prove right now? Is it a principle or is it my pride? Is this about truth or about my image? Often, the answer is about a fragile sense of self that feels threatened. And in that recognition, you find your power, the power to choose peace over point scoring, to choose lasting dignity over a temporary, bitter victory. That choice, made again and again, is how you build an inner fortitude, one that no petty conflict can ever breach. You can understand someone's pain without accepting their poison. That's the paradox in the 10th response. You see the person behind the harsh words, and you still choose not to let those words define things. That's empathetic detachment. It's two things together: genuine compassion for another person's struggle, and a firm boundary that keeps their struggle from becoming yours. The Stoic foundation for this is deep. They believed no one does wrong willingly. People act badly out of ignorance, not ignorance of facts, but a deeper ignorance of what's truly good. They confuse status for worth, control for power, lashing out for strength. In their flawed view, they're doing what seems right to them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this. One of his morning meditations starts with preparation. When you wake up, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, surly. He doesn't say they're evil. He says they're like this because they can't tell good from evil. That shift changes everything. You stop seeing a personal attack. You start seeing a symptom of confusion. This isn't about making excuses, it's about diagnosis. If someone is shouting from physical pain, you don't take the shout personally. You see the pain as the cause. The Stoic applies the same logic to emotional pain. The rude stranger cutting in line might be carrying a grief you can't see. The coworker who dismisses your idea might be paralyzed by a fear of their own irrelevance. Their disrespect is a signal flare. It's broadcasting their inner turmoil. When you learn to read it that way, the sting loses its potency. Their behavior becomes information about their weather, not a judgment on your climate. So practicing this in a real moment begins in that pause. The insult lands. Instead of your mind racing to craft a defense, you give it a different task. You ask a silent, internal question. What pain might this be coming from? You look for the root, not the thorn. Maybe the person is deeply insecure and needs to feel superior. Maybe they're overwhelmed and have lost all capacity for patience. Maybe they're just repeating patterns they learned in a home where respect was never modeled. You don't need the exact answer. The act of searching for it is the practice. It pulls you out of your own wounded ego and into observation. Marcus Aurelius took it further. He suggested we should feel a kind of pity for those who wrong us because they harm themselves far more than they harm us. By acting unjustly, they move further from virtue. They damage their own character. Seeing them as people lost on their own path allows for a detached compassion. You can wish for their betterment, even as you protect yourself from their current behavior. Here's a concrete, private exercise. Think of someone who has shown you disrespect recently. Now, for just 30 seconds, mentally wish for their well-being. Wish for them to find peace. Wish for them to gain the insight they lack. This isn't about them, it's about you. It's about training your own heart to respond to hostility, not with more hostility, but with a calm, distant goodwill. It severs the invisible cord that ties your emotional state to their actions. You free yourself. You acknowledge their humanity without endorsing their conduct. In that space of detached compassion, your dignity isn't just preserved. It becomes a quiet, unassailable force. A force that understands the storm but is not of it. Don't let their disrespect just sit in your mind. You can evict it by building something. That feeling of being slighted, its raw energy. The Stoic question is where to direct it. You can pour it back into mental loops, replaying the event, justifying yourself, or you can channel it like an alchemist into action. This is the 11th way. You transform the event from a source of pain into fuel. The Stoics called our duties kathikonta, appropriate actions, the work right in front of us. The work that aligns with our nature as rational beings. When you feel that sting, that energy is a signal. A surge of motivation with nowhere to go. The Stoic redirects it immediately into the sphere of control, your own effort, your own craft, your own character. Marcus Aurelius put it with force. He wrote, "Do the work at hand with all your might, not later, not after you've settled the score, now with all your might." He saw this as the antidote to distraction, to complaint. Your focus on constructive action leaves no room for the poison of resentment to take root. Think of it as a physics of the mind. Energy can't be destroyed, only transferred. Disrespect creates emotional heat. You can let that heat simmer inside, causing pressure, stress, or you can use it to power an engine. Your engine is your purpose. Consider a scene. You receive unfair criticism in a meeting. The details are wrong. The tone is dismissive. For hours afterward, your mind churns. You draft angry emails you'll never send. You rehearse conversations. That's energy circling a drain. Now, the Stoic redirection. You acknowledge the feeling. You take that same intensity and you apply it with precision to the very next task. Maybe finishing a report to an impeccable standard. Maybe practicing a presentation skill. You use the frustration as a timer. I will work on this project with total concentration for the next 90 minutes. Fueled by this, when the timer goes off, you'll likely find two things. The work is advanced and the emotional charge has dissipated, spent on something that actually serves you. This isn't suppression, it's sublimation. Taking a lower, reactive energy and transmuting it into a higher, creative one. The disrespect didn't motivate you. You chose to be motivated by it. There's a difference. Your life offers endless channels. Did a colleague take credit for your idea? Channel that sense of injustice into documenting your contributions more clearly. Or into mentoring someone else so they never feel that same overshadowing. Did a family member belittle your aspirations? Use that feeling as coal to fire your discipline. Get up an hour earlier, work on your side project, sign up for the course you've been putting off. Let their doubt become the backdrop against which your determination shines brighter. So here is a prompt, a question. What one constructive action can you take today that would render yesterday's slight irrelevant? It doesn't have to be monumental. It could be organizing your workspace, gaining clarity. It could be writing one page of that book. It could be having a calm conversation, one you've been avoiding. The action itself is the eviction notice. It tells the ghost of that disrespect there is no vacancy. This space is occupied by purpose, and with every brick you lay in your own project, the echo of their words grows fainter, until it's finally drowned out by the sound of your own progress. The Stoics had this idea called Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. It sounds harsh, but it's not meant to scare you. It's meant to clarify things, to shrink down all the little daily dramas to their actual size. If you look at a moment of disrespect from the end of your life, it loses its power. You see it for what it really is, just a passing cloud. For them, this wasn't a morbid thought. It was a daily practice, a way to focus on urgency and meaning, on what actually deserves your limited time. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself. He said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, what you say, what you think." He was installing a filter to separate the trivial from the essential. A rude comment, a slight, a social snub, those things don't pass through. They don't matter in the long view. What does pass through is your character, your virtue, the integrity of your actions. That's what you take with you. Seneca put it another way. He said, "We are dying every day. A little life is taken from us each hour, and yet we act like we have an endless supply. We waste it on resentment. We spend it poorly, nursing grievances." He thought that was foolish, to save your life for later, but spend it badly now. If you let someone who insults you steal your focus, they're stealing a moment of your life. Memento Mori is about taking that back, so in the moment you apply it by mentally fast-forwarding. The technique is simple. Something happens. In that pause, you ask a two-part question. First, will this matter in 1 year? The answer is almost always no. Second, if I were on my deathbed looking back, would this be significant? Would I regret spending my energy here? The contrast is sharp. A sarcastic email fades into nothing. What stands out is whether you acted with patience, whether you chose peace over conflict. Those choices define a life. They build a legacy of character that outlasts every slight. You can try carrying a small object for a week, a smooth stone or a coin. Let it be a physical reminder. Every time you feel it in your pocket, let it prompt you, a reminder of finitude. When a minor irritation comes up, a slow driver, a long line, touch the object. Feel its solidity and ask the perspective question. From the end of my life, what here is truly important? You'll feel your shoulders drop, your breath deepens. The urge to react melts away, replaced by a kind of detached calm. You're playing a longer game, and in that game, these aren't the moves that matter. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you purposeful. It directs your finite energy toward what endures, your growth, your relationships, your inner peace. Everything else is just noise, and remembering that is a quiet kind of power. A Stoic is a strategist, not a pacifist. They understand that not every hill is worth dying on. This is the 13th way to respond. It's the application of wisdom to the battlefield of daily life. Wisdom here means discernment. It's the ability to look at a provocation and ask one powerful question. Is this a matter of justice, or is it just pride? Your ego wants to fight every fight. It wants to be right, to be seen, to defend its territory. But wisdom looks at the cost. It calculates the expenditure of your most precious resource, your attention, your energy, your peace, and it allocates that resource only to causes that align with your principles. The greater good. Seneca wrote about this selective engagement. He said the wise person avoids quarrels and conflicts, not from weakness, but because they know the value of tranquility. The folly of most disputes. He observed we often enter battles over things we wouldn't even notice if we were more focused on our own path. The key is proportionality. Does the response fit the offense? Is the cure worse than the disease? Sometimes the most dignified response is to let it go, not because you didn't notice, but because you chose to invest your spirit elsewhere. Consider two scenarios. You're driving, and another driver makes a rude gesture after a minor misunderstanding. That's a hill, a very small, dusty hill. engaging by gesturing back, by tailgating, by letting it ruin your next 10 minutes, that's a massive expenditure for zero gain. It's a skirmish driven entirely by ego. The Stoic strategist sees it, acknowledges the flash of irritation, and then releases it. They conserve that energy. For the other scenario, you have a colleague who consistently takes credit for your work in team reports. This isn't a one-time slight, it's a pattern. It violates justice, it harms the team's understanding, it impacts your professional standing. This is a hill worth addressing, not with an outburst, but with a calm, clear boundary. A private conversation with documented examples. This battle is chosen not for ego, but for integrity, for the principle of fair recognition. The practice is to make this categorization a habit. It starts with a simple list. Think of the current friction points in your life, the person who annoys you, the recurring slight. Write them down mentally. Now, beside each one, place it in one of two columns. The first column is essential for integrity. These are actions that violate a core principle, that damage trust or justice or your ability to fulfill your duties. The second column is optional for ego. These are the irritants, the petty insults, the social slights that bruise your pride but don't harm anything of substance. The goal isn't to eliminate all feeling. It's to redirect your finite willpower, to marshal your forces for the engagements that truly shape your character. Your world, by consciously letting the optional battles fade, you don't become weaker, you become focused. Your dignity is no longer scattered across 100 minor defenses. It's consolidated, a quiet, unwavering strength for the moments that truly count. The goal is to be unmoved by insult, just as you're unmoved by empty praise. This is the 14th response. It builds a fortress with two walls. If one wall is weak, if you crave flattery, then the other wall will crumble under criticism. They're the same wall. It's your dependence on external opinion. To free yourself from one, you have to free yourself from both. True Stoic stability is in the center. Valuing only what you control, your intentions, your efforts, your character, your virtuous action. Everything else, the applause and the boos, that's just weather outside the window. It may be loud, but it doesn't set the temperature inside your home. Epictetus had a razor-sharp meditation on this. He said, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, don't make excuses about what is said. Instead, answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. That flips the entire script. It treats praise and blame with the same detached curiosity. Both are just someone else's opinion based on their limited view. Why would you let a partial external assessment, whether it's positive or negative, define your internal state? Consider a public figure who mastered this, someone like the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, writing his private thoughts while leading wars, managing a vast empire. He was showered with the most extreme forms of both adulation and hatred. Statues were erected in his honor. Conspiracies were formed against his life. Yet in his private journal, he consistently returns to one theme. He reminds himself to ignore the chatter of the mob, to not be puffed up by the praise or cast down by the slander. He writes that the praise of the crowd means nothing, for they often praise the worst of men. His focus remained fixed on his duty, on acting with justice and wisdom, regardless of the noise swirling around the throne. He was anchored to his moral compass, not the shifting winds of popular opinion. You can practice this in a much quieter arena, your daily life. When you complete a project at work, notice the internal pull. The desire to have it recognized, praised, celebrated. That desire is the hook. It's the same hook that snags you when the project is criticized or ignored. The practice is to perform the action for its own sake, to do good work because it is good work, to be kind because kindness is right. The reward is in the action itself, in its alignment with your principles, not in the reaction it elicits. So here's a direct one-day challenge. For 24 hours, make a conscious effort to not seek and to not internally rely on any external compliment or criticism to assess your worth. Go through your day doing what you believe is right. If someone praises you, receive it politely, but don't let it swell your sense of self. Simply note it as a pleasant sound. If someone criticizes you, receive it calmly. Assess if there's useful data in it for your improvement, and then let the emotional sting of it pass by like a cloud. Don't use either to recalibrate your self-esteem. Keep that calibration internal, based on your own honest assessment of your efforts and your intent. You'll likely feel a profound sense of liberation. The world's volume knob is turned down. Your own inner voice, your moral compass, becomes the clearest sound in the room. And from that quiet center, no disrespect can ever truly reach you. The battles are done for the day, and in the quiet, that's where the learning really happens. This is the 15th way to respond, the last one. It happens after the fact. It's the evening review. The Stoics, they didn't just face the day and move on. They took the day's events, the hard ones especially, and they made that their curriculum. They'd sit with them, examine them, pull out the lesson. This practice, often done before sleep, is where you bring the other 14 responses together. You move from theory into something lived. Seneca wrote about this. He told his friend Lucilius to do a self-examination every night. He described it. When the light is gone and my wife is silent, I examine my whole day. I go back over what I've done and said. I hide nothing from myself. I pass nothing over. He said we should ask, what bad habit did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what way are you better? This isn't about criticizing yourself. It's about holding yourself accountable. The goal is progress, not perfection. It's about seeing clearly so you can adjust. For our focus, you bring a specific lens to this. You look at the moments of friction, that flash of disrespect you felt, and you walk through them with a structured, gentle curiosity. The questions are simple. First, where did I succeed in keeping my dignity? Maybe you took that pause. Maybe you asked a clarifying question. Maybe you just let a comment go without a fight. Acknowledge that win. It builds the pathway for doing it again. Second, where did my emotions get the better of me? Where did I feel that old, hot surge of pride take the wheel? Don't judge it, just note it. Observe it like a scientist watching a reaction. Third, and this is the important one, what can I adjust tomorrow? This is the forward-looking step. If you snapped back, maybe the adjustment is to practice that poise reset. If you spent an hour ruminating, maybe the adjustment is to immediately channel that energy into a task next time. The review isn't a court where you prosecute yourself. It's a workshop where you tune your instrument. Take a brief example. During a work call, a colleague dismisses your suggestion. Says, that's not how we do things here. You feel the sting. In the moment you say nothing, but you seethe inside for the next hour. In your evening review, you sit with it. You ask the questions, where did you succeed? You succeeded by not firing back in the meeting. You used the restraint of silence. That's a real victory. Where did your emotions get the better of you? They took over in the hour afterward. You let the incident rent space in your mind. It stole your focus and your peace. What can you adjust tomorrow? You decide that tomorrow, if it happens again, you'll use the redirection technique right after the call. You'll take 5 minutes to work on a different, meaningful task. To break the rumination cycle, you might also prepare a neutral question for that colleague for a future talk, something like, I'd like to understand the process better. Could you walk me through it? This turns the event from a wound into a plan. So here's a reflective prompt, a final, practical invitation. For the next 3 nights, commit to just 5 minutes. Before you sleep, put away the screens, sit quietly. Think back over the day and find one moment of social friction, however small. Then, gently ask those 3 questions. Where did I hold my dignity? Where did I lose my footing? What is one small adjustment I can practice tomorrow? Write down a word or 2 if it helps. This ritual does something. It closes the loop. It makes sure no encounter, no matter how disrespectful, is wasted. Everyone becomes a stepping stone. A lesson in the long, quiet project of building an unshakable self. That's the ultimate Stoic response, to use everything, even the poison, as fertilizer for your own growth. Holding onto anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's the old saying, and it's true. The resentment you carry, it doesn't touch them. It lives inside you, it colors your days, it drains your energy, it ties you to a moment that's already gone. This is the 16th way, forgiveness from a Stoic point of view. It's not about saying what they did was okay. It's about saying you won't let it cost you your peace anymore. In a profound way, it's a selfish act, a necessary one. You're reclaiming territory in your own mind that was occupied by a ghost. Resentment is a chain to the past. It's a constant rehearsal of a story where you're the wounded party. Every time you replay it, you hand control of your present mood back to someone else's past action. You're wishing for a different yesterday. The Stoic asks a simple question. Is that wish within your control? The answer is no. The past is fixed. It's an external fact, like the weather of a day gone by. To rail against it is like shouting at a cloud that's already passed. Forgiveness is the decision to stop shouting, to stop wishing for a different cloud. It's accepting what happened, so you can fully inhabit what is happening now. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said the best revenge is to be unlike the person who caused the injury, and he reminded himself to be quick to forgive those who wrong him, because it's in your nature to do so. For him, forgiveness wasn't a grand moral gesture. It was an alignment with his own rational nature. To cling to bitterness was irrational. It was harming himself with the memory of another's error. He saw the person who wronged him as misguided, acting from ignorance. To hold a grudge against someone who is spiritually blind is like being angry at the rain for being wet. You understand the cause and you get out of the storm. Think of a grudge you've carried. Notice the weight of it, the mental energy spent on revisits, the subtle bitterness that seeps into other moments. Now imagine the alternative, not a dramatic confrontation, but a quiet, internal declaration. You say to yourself, for my own peace, I release my claim against you. I stop expecting an apology that may never come. I stop waiting for the past to change. I accept it as a fact of my history, and I turn toward the facts of my present. The feeling isn't necessarily warm, it is light. It's the sensation of putting down a heavy bag you didn't realize you were still carrying. So here's an exercise. Take a piece of paper, write a letter of forgiveness to one person. You will not send this letter. This is for you. In it, describe the hurt simply and factually. Then write the words, for my own peace, I release this. I am choosing to no longer let this memory occupy my mind. Focus not on them, but on the physical sensation you want to create in yourself as you write. The loosening of a knot, the deepening of a breath, the clearing of space for something new. You're not condoning, you're evicting a tenant that pays no rent and only brings noise. You're making room once more for your own tranquility to grow. The power was never in how the world acts, it's in how you build your response. That's the thread through all of this. Stoic dignity, it's not about controlling what others do. It's about mastering your own judgments, your reactions, that space between something happening and what you choose to do next. And that mastery, it turns disrespect from something that breaks your peace into something that actually affirms it. You've built a toolkit, not for comebacks but for quiet recalibrations. The foundational pause, the one that claims your mental ground, separating the act you see from the painful story you tell about it, setting boundaries with assertive grace. Knowing which hills are worth your energy, these aren't perfect states you reach and then you're done. They're daily practices like strengthening a muscle. Each slight, each irritation, it's just another repetition in the gym of your character. Epictetus put it well. He said, No person is free who is not master of themselves. A well-ordered mind, one that governs its own judgments and impulses, that becomes a fortress. No external storm can breach it. That's the ultimate freedom these practices offer. So see yourself not as someone who's mastered these ideas. See yourself as a lifelong student of character. Every challenging person, every difficult conversation, it's not an interruption to your peace. It's the curriculum, it's the very material you need to practice patience, to exercise courage, to embody justice. Your journey with Stoic principles, it's continuous. Each day offers a fresh page for practice.